Well, welcome everyone. I am Joni Ekovich. I am the CMO at Points for Purpose, and I will be your host today for our webinar on local area marketing. With
A
us,
different
we
viewpoint
have
and
four
wealth of knowledge
panelists
around local
that
area
stem
marketing.
from
So
all different
I'll go
segments
through and
that
introduce each
bring,
one. And if you guys can just do a quick little overview about who you are, we'll start with Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Counter. I'm the president and founder of Franchise Marketing Systems. We are a full service franchise development company based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. And we work with businesses to help them become a franchise model, and then we help them sell and market their franchise to get a larger distribution network.
Yeah. Kirsty, you're the next one on my screen.
Good morning or good evening, everybody. My name's Kirsty McCosh, and I am the founder of KMCC Consulting. And what I do is I go into businesses and help the teams to kind of realize their capability and therefore unlock the potential of businesses. And so have worked across a and depth of industry and sector and category, a lot of which has been grounded in local area marketing.
Great. Josh.
Thanks, Joni. And yeah, good morning slash good evening to those that are tuning in from around the world. So I'm Josh, General Manager and Head of Insights and Client Performance at Retail Doctor Group, which is a retail consultancy based in Sydney. So we work with retailers, franchise networks, multi-site brands across customer insights, strategy, store performance, operations, and growth. And so a lot of my work sits at the intersection of understanding the customer and turning that understanding into practical execution. So whether that's local marketing, store experience, service behavior, brand positioning, or customer conversion, that becomes our focus.
And then finally, Andrew.
Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew. I'm the founder and CEO of Digital Mass. We are a local marketing platform. So we're living and breathing local every single day. Our customers span over 100 countries, and I've been at it for about 14 years. I started the company 14 years ago. So excited to be here today and share some of the things that we've been seeing across LAM and local marketing.
Great. So I want to go ahead and jump into our first question. And that's, Kirsty, it's going to kick off to you first. And the question is, if you had to pick one guiding principle for effective local marketing across all locations, what would it be? And how has that principle shaped your decisions or the guidance you've given to any of your clients?
I'm going to break the rules and I'm going to give you two. So there you go.
Yeah, I like
Rule breaker
it.
straight off the bat. So when I was asked this question, there's actually two. So I think the first principle is that it needs to be a plan within a plan. So the local area marketing, it cannot be a one size fits all. It cannot be a kind of afterthought. It's got to be a plan within a plan. And if anything, you probably spend more time thinking about the local area marketing plan than you do the national plan. And that leads me to principle two. And the reason why you need to spend more time with it is that it's got to be relevance over reach. I think the temptation is always when you get to a local space is that there is a perception that actually they can take all the different channels that we have the access to from a national level and almost replicate it locally. But actually, sometimes more channels, more spend, more noise doesn't necessarily drive the right outcome because relevance is really important. And actually, the reason why you need to spend more time thinking about local area marketing and what that plan is because you have to understand the local nuance. And so it's probably the difference between a centre running I'm currently working at the YMCA, so the Y, helping them in their national peak body. I spend a lot of time talking about recreation centres and how to unlock participation in that space. And I suppose it's the difference between a centre running a generic Join Now campaign and one that actually shows up at maybe a local school event or sponsors the local under 9s footy team, or has a community manager that's on first name terms with the local council, right? It's that nuance. It's the same brand, but it's a completely different impact. And so that's how I kind of support clients in ensuring that that last 100 meters, that last 100 yards is actually thought about, nuanced for where they are, so that they can win, right? Because it is the last 100 yards, it is the last 100 meters. And so consequently, I'd love for the local, recreation centre to do 2 things really well rather than 6 things okay, because you'll get more impact by doing that.
Love that. I want to open it up to our other 3 panelists. Chris, Josh, or Andrew, do you guys have any that you'd like to build on, or any additional elements that you think are extremely important?
Yeah, I guess from what I see from customers is that Kirsty's exactly right. Like trying to translate that national marketing plan into local relevance, but making it feel authentic, I think is so important. So how do you actually try and herd all of these different locations into one direction, but still maintain that sort of cohesiveness across the national plan? I think it's a real challenge, especially if you have people that go out on their own and want to do different things and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that my thoughts that came to mind when Kirsty was speaking there is around sort of this like guidance principle or governance, where it's like, you don't want to be too heavy-handed, but you want to try and push them into the right direction. And I think what I also see a lot is what great franchise groups share a lot. So what's working in one state versus another state, and coming together on what's winning. I think that's the power of a franchise. So yeah, they're the 2 things that come to mind around that.
Yeah, and so a really good point, and thanks, Kirsty, for really anchoring those 2 points of the plan within a plan and the relevance for reach. I really like that as well. And from my angle, it's about that relevance with discipline. So in that franchise or multi-site environment, ultimately you don't want every operator having to reinvent the brand. But what you also don't want is that local execution to feel too generic. So again, that comes back into this echo of this anchorage of relevance. The sweet spot really becomes that freedom within that framework, or the plan within the plan to do that. So it's not about making the national campaign smaller, it's about translating the brand into the customer's local context.
Yeah.
In the franchise space, I'm working with a lot of these brands to roll out franchise networks, and we talk a lot about social media. How do you manage it? How do you keep consistency? How do you make sure that people aren't going off base? But you also don't want to lose that local connection to a market where someone can speak about things that are happening in their community, connect with people in that community because they're talking about a parade or a celebration or things that happen just in their town. So it's a combination of setting the rules, defining the precedents for what the brand stands for, who we are, what our brand standards are, and then I think giving some independence to them to actually execute locally too. And then monitoring it, making sure that people are doing that and not putting crazy political statements out on social media and stuff like that.
Or not too many.
Right.
Yeah, throughout my career, I've obviously worked with retail, both big and small, and I've seen some really crazy things that local managers and local business owners can do that just completely goes off the wall from the brand. And so I think, I'm 100% with you guys on, I think the first step is really make sure there's guidance there and that they understand that, everything kind of needs to fit within that national brand guide and that national strategy. Our next question is around channels, tactics, and utilizing user-generated content, and how can we best do that for local area marketing? So the question is, Many local businesses struggle to get customers to participate, whether that is trying to do content or get them to be involved with the efforts that you're doing locally. So, what is a simple or repeatable play you recommend to encourage reviews, testimonials, user-generated content for a specific business or trade area? And kind of the second level to this, what tactics have you found work in getting local operators or franchisees to implement these practices? Chris, I'm going to go ahead and have you kick this one off for us.
Yeah, and this is such an awesome topic that I think can really move the needle for every business, and I it's something that I tend to forget about in my own business, and then I'll run into a company that's doing this really well, and it's like, man, such an important thing. And one thing that I think is true is when you see a company that has a lot of great reviews, it's not necessarily because their product or service is better. It's because they have a system built around getting those reviews. And it's really about focusing on this and making it a priority. The statistics are mind-blowing. 95% of consumers look at reviews before they make a buying decision, 97% if it's considered a major buying decision. This is something that you cannot make an afterthought. If you own a business in any field, service, product, food service, you have to be focusing on it. And some of the things that I've found work are number one, leverage that win opportunity to ask for the review. Good service. The customer said you guys provided great service. It was a great meal. Ask for the review. You fix an HVAC system or an air conditioning unit and people are happy. Ask for the review. Make sure that this happens as close to that positive engagement as we can make it, because every second that goes by, even though people might want to, they forget. So this has to come through training, talking to the staff, talking to your team members to make it a priority. Little things can make a difference too, like put QR codes, like Joni, on your screen thing here. So have a QR code everywhere we can. This could be invoices, it could be receipts, it could be menus, it could be signs, whatever it might be. And then to link that directly to our review site so we make it fast and easy for someone to leave a review and make it quick. The other thing that I've found that has a really significant impact is don't just let a good review go as like, hey, great, thank you. If you can, turn that into a testimonial. Have an engagement with the customer. If you want to go crazy, do a little short video, on your phone with them and actually talk to them about the experience and elaborate on that. This is what will drive more customers into the location. It builds equity in the brand. I don't think there's too many other marketing mediums that you can use than happy customers to absolutely move the needle for your business. Doesn't matter what industry you're in.
Yeah. Andrew, I'm going to actually throw an elevated one as my kind of local tech guy who loves
Yeah.
to kind of get more nitty-gritty into tech. Great suggestions from Chris.
hmm
Obviously, at a local level, encouraging franchise operators to do this, encourage management to do this. But, with the advancements of AI, do you see the opportunity to really be able to optimize AI to scale this so that, not only are we getting reviews, but how do we take those reviews and turn those reviews into business that we
Yeah.
can actually calculate and see.
Yeah, I completely agree with Chris. Like, user generated content and all the stuff that's happening there, super, super important. We actually saw a really interesting stat. We had 22 million reviews in our platform, and people that were responding within 24 hours to all reviews, not just positive, but all reviews, actually saw a tripling in the amount of keywords that they were ranking for. So Google was rewarding them for actually responding in a timely manner. Before, when you used to reply to a review, and I'm talking specifically about Google here, they never used to notify the customer, but now they do. So they actually notify when you're acknowledging that feedback. So really, really important. And they're also encouraging much richer qualities of reviews with a lot of the review platforms nowadays. So Yeah, talking about AI review replies, that's a really interesting topic right now because everyone's replying to reviews using AI. Some people are worried about it won't sound as authentic as them. So I think it sort of leads into what I was going to say about AI in general is you need to try and make sure, and everyone's experienced it, this concept of AI slop, stuff that just looks terrible, or not on brand. You can tell that it's been generated. I think the capabilities now with AI are immense. We started studying it many, many years ago, and it's obviously revolutionized the marketing space in what we can create and potentially, but there's a very big difference between great stuff that's being created using AI and stuff that you'd look at it and think, wow, what is that? And I think event posters is a really interesting one right now. You can pick when that event poster has been created using certain platforms. I can almost choose the model that's been created. So how do you do that in a local landscape? You're a national marketing team, you're trying to implement a nationwide strategy. You want to give all the tools, but you want to have governance and guidance around how they're being used and stuff like that. I think that's a really smart play. The second thing I would say is when you're having the governance and when you're putting those systems in place, know that your users are already using AI. So I don't really run into anyone who's not trying to make, their process of managing locations, replying to reviews, promoting locations. Everyone's having a go, at doing that. So I think putting some formal things in place, putting some strategies, guidelines, governance, etc., will make sure that everything stays on brand, it's best practice, and things like that. So when you think about the different areas of AI, you think about review replies is a really good one. It's time consuming, high volume. You want to make sure it's there. Really, really good one to do. My suggestion to you would be to build a skill that bakes in your tone of voice and your brand in order to be able to reply consistently the right way. Think about skills as like guidance, right? They're just guidance of how the AI should act and respond. So if I'm, a particular brand, I'm like, here's our tone of voice. You can bake that into your skill. So next time you go to reply to review, it's not just cold starting from scratch all the time. It actually knows, hey, I'm, this franchisee and I'm from this brand and this is how we speak and these are the products we have and stuff like that. Really, really important. So do those skills. Most of the AI platforms now have skill creators built in. So just say, hey, I want to create a skill to be able to help me to reply to reviews, right? So even form that has that type of thing built in, you can still use it in any AI tool that's out there. So skill development, really, really important part. Talking about UGC and images particularly, make sure you go through your images on your locations across all the platforms because a lot of times someone would have a really bad experience and they'll snap a photo. We just did it with a big national gym chain where they constantly have machines that break down, right? It's part of having machinery in your gym floor. But someone snaps a photo of a cable that's out on a gym, leaves a review, and leaves it up there for all of eternity, right? The thing is that probably gets fixed the next day, and people are looking and going, oh, that gym has really bad equipment. So make sure that you do that. You can report reviews. You can report reviews to be removed, and you can also report images to be removed. So if that image is no longer relevant, you can put it in there to say, hey, that's a photo of a carpet that was torn and we've already fixed that. So take the image down, right? And you can do that. So you can moderate it. Obviously at the national, local level, that's a great thing for your locations to actually do themselves because they'll know their location best. So yeah, skill development, use skills to be able to do it. I would say that give guidelines. If you can create some skills at a national level and provide those to your franchisees, to your locations, that's actually a really good thing as well, because you can package up skills as a national marketing team, zip them up and send them to your locations and they can use those skills. So if you want to bake in your brand, the way you do things, your products and services, etc., they are transferable. So you can give those to your end users. Really, really powerful to do. If you don't know where to begin, just prompt the engine. Just prompt it to say, "Hey, I'm a national marketing manager. I'm wanting this type of thing. We're in crazy, crazy time in regards to the intelligence that some of these AI can bring to the table. But executed incorrectly, it can really damage your brand. So I would say start small, but thinking about like where are we using it in local, it's right across the local marketing stack. So content at scale, review replies at scale, like making life easier, all of that is where we are today. And know that your users, your franchisees are already doing it, right? You know, like they're 100% already doing it. Longer term, if I was setting up some plans, I would say have some type of local execution AI plan around how you're actually going to embrace these, what tools you're going to use, what skills you're going to do. Really, really important. Second thing I'd say, don't take the authenticity away, right? The AI has an ability to scale like we've never seen before. So knowing that the parade's just run in a particular town, it can know that really easily with a bit of a web search or a scrape or something like that. So try and make it relevant to that particular area so it feels authentic. And if you are concerned with sort of turning everything fully autonomous and fully on, just tell the AI that you want to approve everything before it goes live, and that's going to give the people the ability to add their 10% and make sure that we're not producing anything that you wouldn't be happy with. So always stay in control until a point where you feel like you can let go of the reins and let it go. So I guess closing line, brands that will win are the ones that adopt AI in a really good way, top down, bottom up, right through the organization. And these tools are incredibly powerful for a franchisee who's time poor. They want to grow their business. They want to be able to respond to customer feedback. This is going to give them the ability to do that in a really, really efficient way. So embrace it properly. You can do some really good stuff with it. So yeah, I'm all for AI, as you can imagine. But want to make sure there's those guardrails, those execution frameworks to make it really, really scale well and get the most out of it. Yeah.
I really like listening to. I feel like I learn something new about technology and AI every time I listen to Andrew talk. So I really value that as well. And I think also from my perspective, and coming back to some of the original points that Chris was making in terms of the channels, tactics, and UGC's content as well. One of the things I really liked from Chris's perspective is it's about the system of reviews and enabling the franchisees and the networks to be able to actually get these into the systems and understand what are the vehicles to be able to achieve this. The other point was 95% of consumers are reviewing before they're taking the next step, and I think that's something really important to understand about this, because to me it says that the reviews and the UGCs become that decision evidence to what I'm going to do. Our time is becoming more compressed more than ever. I mean, I even remembered reading a few weeks ago that, what was it, the new Mercedes C-Class has Microsoft Teams inbuilt into its dashboard so that you can take your meetings on the road. So one, what a world we are living in that becomes a selling feature from Mercedes. But two, that says how compressed is our time? And so if we're going to make decisions about where we're going to transact, where we're going to become part of this tribe or this community, we're looking for these touch points or this evidence and everywhere we go. And whether we want to be able to search that online, whether we're Google natives and naturally attract to that platform, we want to see that where we are as consumers. And I think that's really important for us to be able to, and the tools to be able to provide to franchisees and networks as well, is understanding what are those vehicles that are going to support my decisions. They might not be the be all and end all, but they can be quite the defining factors, not only in search, but in that ultimate decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Kirsty, do you have anything else to kind of build on there?
I mean, I think having worked in franchising environments and also environments, where you've got basically an operations manager running a recreation center, actually local area marketing can be quite confronting if that's not what you're into. And so I think uh, uh, the opportunity spread is huge, right? You can go from hi-fi, i.e., AI-enabled platforms that allow you to, you know, review within 24 hours, which unlocks that the kind of tripling of the demand signal coming into the location. You can equally go Wi-Fi, lo-fi, and as simple as putting a QR code on the counter and asking people as they're checking out, as they're paying, listen, if you've had a great experience, could you just give us a review, right? And everything in between. And so I think, again, it just goes back to my original point, which is one size does not fit all when it comes to local area marketing, because you've got the nuance of the community in which that location is in, but you've also then got the capability of the person who's responsible for it at the location. And I having worked with franchisees, I've spent a lot of time literally sitting in their clinic saying, it's okay, don't worry, you don't need to be over here, you just need to be here, and giving them the confidence to lean in. And then once they've got that under their belt, then you do the next thing, and then you do the next thing. And so it really is about ensuring that at a local level exactly what capability you've got to therefore create the plan that's right for them, that will get them the results, that will get them the confidence, so that you can then add to capability. Because again, you can scale beautifully, within technology platforms, but actually, there's still a human element in all of that, is what I'm saying, and you need to be aware of where those capability gaps are.
Yeah. I do want to take Andrew had some great examples of kind of what the technology is capable of, especially within kind of UGC and interacting at a local level. And I'd kind of like to take a next level to that and just Andrew, do you have any recommendations on this call for, if anyone is on the call who hasn't really started looking into AI or is still
Hmm.
very new into AI, kind of what are those things that they should start doing now to really get up to speed with the capabilities that AI has?
Yeah, I guess that's a great question. I think that some of the things that where I would start is, doesn't matter which platform you choose to use, they're all pretty similar now, all the state of the art ones. So, you're thinking your Claudes, your Geminis, OpenAI, etc. Start with a reasoning model and then give it your biggest challenges, right? So, what's your North Star? Like, break it down. There's a couple of processes that we follow where we start with like a really big challenge, like, hey, we've got a review problem. Average rating isn't high enough against our competitors. Like, where should I begin, right? So prompt a strategy out of it would be where I'd start. The second thing I'd probably say is that when you're building a framework out, go slow, right? Because it's a really challenging thing. I think I've seen so many people that just rush into it head first. And then what happens is your whole team just becomes bamboozled, right? Because there's so much changing. It's almost like building on sinking sand. So go small, just find one big challenge that you've got, brief it into the AI, get the AI to give you the scaffolding, the outline, and then talk about it with your team. So rather than get it to do everything end to end, think, execute, action, whatever, get it to create some talking points that you guys sit around in a whiteboard, and just say, hey, do we agree? Do we disagree? That's a really good place to start. We do it all the time with lots of complex challenges that we're facing. So I'd start there, build those workshops out, build that plan out, and then just start iterating and building upon it. You'll hear a process a lot called loop engineering, or loops. Everyone's going to start talking about it, just like they were talking about context and skills. Loops essentially a way of saying whatever we build today will be better tomorrow if we just keep iterating and compounding those improvements, right? So, and we're doing it. That's probably the biggest win in AI right now, is that, like, don't just think one and done. Think, build a plan, constantly review that plan, put it into action, get that feedback mechanisms. Like, hey, we put this review generation process in place. We put QR codes everywhere. Did it actually move the needle? Did we get more reviews, right? What did we learn from those reviews? What was in those reviews? What was the sentiment like? What were people talking about? So all those signals are so important in AI, right? Because if you feed those signals back into AI and say, analyze this, it can give us some really great insights. And I think that reasoning capability of AI is incredibly important. I will say that like it's a challenge getting a national strategy to roll down to LAM. Like it is a really big challenge. And generally, who's running national may not be the one who's running LAM. So in an organization, it could be two different people with two different strategies in two different ways. Some people want to educate, some people want to execute. I think coming together is really important. So bringing those people in a room, whiteboarding it out, coming up with a plan, use it for AI enablement to augment whoever's there, and also set up those monitoring, right? We're in an unprecedented place now where we can actually track so much information, like who's opening locations in my area, what are they doing, what are they promoting, what ads are they running, what keywords are they ranking for, what's their customers saying about them. Like we're in a like we would have only dreamed about having that capability years ago, right? Whereas I see the A players are actually so aware of their own strategies, their competitors' strategies. They're constantly jostling those strategies. They're changing it almost on a weekly basis to respond to however the market reacts, and they're the ones who, in my opinion, are winning over the people who are just saying, yeah, we know it's there, but we're going to stick our head in the sand and just hope it goes away. It's like that. Those days are gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, what I loved about the point that you just made is AI is great and it's definitely a fantastic tool, but there's still a human element. And I think that we need
Exactly.
to make sure not to forget about the human element that still needs to play when building
Yeah.
these strategies and looking at local area marketing and what it means, because
Yeah.
each location is different and they're going to need a different strategy. And those individuals at those individual, you know, whether it's a city or even a neighborhood,
Yeah.
they have their own opinions. And so it will always need a human touch.
And remember, it's only been trained with what it's able to read online, right?
Yeah.
So your
Yep.
own private data, the campaign that you tried 12 months ago and it didn't work, that's not publicly available to anyone else. That's inside your organization, right? So you combine that private data with the pre-trained data, like everyone's blog posts and frameworks and everything else that gets read during that pre-training of the AI. That's the one-two punch, in my opinion. It's like combining that private data with public data. That's where you can build something truly unique that no one else can replicate because they don't have access to your private data. So yeah.
Yeah. Our last kind of longer question, looking at the next 1 to 2 years, what emerging consumer behaviors or platform shifts do you think will impact local area marketing and local engagement? And how do you recommend operators, franchisees, to prepare for this future? Josh, I'm going to go ahead and have you kick this one off for us.
Thanks, Johnny. And what an exciting question to unpack. Looking at the next 1 to 2 years, the way that I like to look at these sort of questions as well is to think about it as what's coming from over the horizon and how do we potentially meet the consumers where they're going to be. So over the next 1 to 2 years, I really think local area marketing is about moving primarily from this concept of visibility to enabling local confidence. So for a long time, the local marketing was about, making sure the business could be found in the trade area, right listing, right local offer, right hygiene factors. And those things still matter. But the customer journey is becoming much more selected, assisted, more evidence-led, even more fragmented at the same time. But the customer's not really asking who is near me. They're saying who is right for me right now, and do I have that confidence to act? And that's where local marketing really becomes that final 100 yards. So national marketing can create the awareness, demand, brand memory, but local is where the intent either converts into action or falls away. And it's where that customer decides whether that location or this operator, this offer, and this experience is relevant, credible, human, and worth choosing for me. And so we recently ran some research as part of our Why We Buy white paper that was released earlier this week. But what it shows is that customers aren't closed off or spending less across the board. So they're just becoming more selective about what feels worth their money, their time and attention. 19% of consumers in the research said they were financially comfortable to make these or make spending decisions, but 53% of consumers are really focusing on spending what matters. And what matters is very subjective depending on who it comes from, because it's what matters to me. And that's a very important distinction for retailers, franchise networks. So if customers are selective, the answer is not just about how do we shout louder or discount harder. It's to help the customer feel that the local choice is worth making. And this also changes how we see value. So value is not just about price, it's the customer's reason to believe that the purchase is worth it. So I think local marketing has to move beyond, the offers alone. Offers can be useful, but local proof, service, trust, and relevance is what helps customers justify those decisions. We also looked at some previous information on AI adoption as well, and where my little sheet's gone. So with AI in retail, some of the interesting concepts that we're starting to see, and really understanding that the role of ChatGPT, AI in search has only really ballooned over the last 12 to 18 months. But when we ran this research a little bit earlier in the year, we're seeing that general AI in the shopping is mostly used at 36% to compare prices or find the best deals, followed by 25% of discover gift ideas, and then 24% in find product options. Interestingly, 21% was to understand or simplify the product reviews as well. So what we're seeing is consumers are using AI for many different formats and different themes. And as it starts to become a more important vehicle, they're going to be using it more and more and more as part of the journey. And it really becomes around AI is that discovery and that decision support layer that moves on. And so it's helping customers filter the market before they ever walk into a store, before they call a local operator, or before they visit a local page. But it doesn't make the human layer any less important. It actually makes it more important. And as more of that discovery journey becomes automated, the humanization becomes a stronger differentiator. So that visible local operator, knowledgeable team members, the honest advice, current reviews, they're all signals that anchor trust as part of that process. So the AI may help that customer shortlist, but the humanization element actually helps them choose and make those decisions. And it's pretty critical in terms of those franchise environments. So the franchisor creates that brand platform and that operation, where the franchisee is often the ones that bring that local credibility. So they know the community, they know the customer questions, they know the local competitors, and they know where confidence is breaking down. So I think one of the biggest opportunities for franchises and franchise leaders is to connect the technology and the humanization properly. Technology becomes the way that we find the brand, that helps us become more efficient, can increase the reliability, but that local human layer helps the brand become more trusted, more memorable, and more believable, which then directly connects to loyalty. Now, loyalty is always such a critical and such a major part of local engagement, but it's not just loyalty in the traditional sense of not only points, apps, or memberships. So locally, loyalty is built through repeated confidence. Does the customer feel recognized? Do they feel understood? Is the value clear, experience easy? Does the team member not make the choice just feel safe, but do they make the customer feel like they belong? That becomes a clear differentiator as part of that local experience. And demographics can tell you who's in the catchment as well. But one of those clear talking points from a customer understanding is also really links back to what does the customer think, what attracts that customer to your brand, and how do I create this intersection within my local area marketing to make sure that we are anchoring to those key points that we understand those customers are moving towards. Because when local marketing it can often miss when it treats every single customer as if they're responding to the same cues. Same offer, same message, proof points can mean very different things to the different types of customers. So when we talk about preparing for the next 1 to 2 years, it's not really advising operators and franchisees to chase every new platform, but it's really about how they strengthen the parts of the local system that create this confidence. So first, it's that local evidence layer, those hygiene factors, making sure we've got the right details so that we can be found. That second layer is all about the humans, the team members who can build confidence. So not just complete the transactions. And in our research, the most valued team member qualities were knowledge and honesty, which tells us customers want help making a decision they feel good about. Third is that loyalty layer, not just enrollment, but recognition, relevant ease, trust to encourage that repeat behavior. The fourth layer is the insights, understanding what different customers in the catchments need from a localized level to feel before they actually choose. And then lastly, it's that operating layer, coming right back to Kirsty's first point. It's, the plan within the plan, that freedom within the framework. So franchise leaders need to give the local operators the tools, templates, and the measurement models while still allowing them to bring the local credibility and human relevance that the support office cannot just manufacture. So the brands that win locally over the next couple of years aren't just going to be the ones that appear in more places. They'll be the ones that convert local visibility into local confidence. So they're using the tech to be found, humanization to be trusted, loyalty to repeat behavior, and insight to understand why customers choose.
Yeah. Anybody else on the panel like to kind of build on that or give any additional kind of thoughts around what does that next 1 to 2 years in local area marketing look like? Josh gave us a lot of great
There was a
I feel like I've been doing
for
too
you
much
guys
talking.
to talk about now.
I've been doing too much talking. I'm gonna go to Kirsty or Chris.
It's kind of sparked a much deeper thought. So apologies for this at 8:45 in the morning, but actually the piece around human relevance is becoming even more important when we think about community and a sense of belonging. And it's a really deep thought, and I'm very sorry that this is happening so early or so late, depending on where you are. But actually, particularly for younger people,
Yes.
isolation and loneliness is becoming an increasingly big issue for them. And actually, they're very tech savvy and they are definitely using technology in a way that drives the efficiency of their lives and findability and all that kind of stuff. But actually, the piece that Josh said at the end around that human relevance, that will be the difference between them walking in again and not, right? Because putting a human into that transaction, that sense of connection will drive that sense of belonging, and it's really that higher thought that then drives that loyalty, I suspect. Without the research actually asking for it, it is that actually local area marketing will win or lose on, I think, that higher order requirement that as humans we are craving at the moment because of the world and the shifts around us, and particularly for that younger generation. Here in Australia, that younger generation is now more lonely than the older generation. And that's the first time that's happened. And that is, an increasingly big challenge, because actually it's the generation that probably utilize technology the most, right? And so how do we help them find a better balance so that they can become part of the community and feel as though they belong, and then enable the community around it to receive that loyalty. Yeah.
And Kirsty, I'm very glad that you anchored to that belonging concept as well. And I've spent enough time on my pedestal giving my talk, but one of the things that really have started to uncover as part of working with a wide range of clients is actually this concept of safety. And I think it's really important that we actually revisit how we uh, can commercially communicate the role of being safe. And is that something that we really want our customers to focus on? Well, and I mean this in the context of we are a safe choice. You are making a safe bet with me. Because what safe actually infers is that there is danger. And what we really want to do, especially from a local area marketing, a local community, is ensure that our customers feel like they belong rather than safe. So we're moving from a very defensive statement and approach, and what we're actually asking the customer to feel, to one that is a more proactive, a more human, and more receptive to their understanding their feelings and ultimately their emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, at Points for Purpose, we see the same thing too, where, when we talk to retailers, what they're looking for is, how do I differentiate and connect with my community? Whether it's a franchise, a local retail operator, the competition's really stiff. Not
Mm.
just in business against business, but consumer opinion is quite intense, and it can flip on a dime. I mean, we've seen it a lot in the States where, a consumer, one bad PR, and you'll see a complete flip in consumer trust in your business. And so having that local connection and being able to really create a community with your consumers is as important as what you're doing from a product standpoint or what you're offering as a whole. I kind of really the word that you guys keep using is community, and we use community-led marketing as a lot of the conversation because at the end of the day, it's not just local because you happen to live in the same area. It's you create a community of like-mindedness and similar needs and desires based on either where you live or within how you shop or what it is that you're looking for. And so those communities really create a strong um, engagement across the consumers, and to be able to really be a part of that as a retailer or as a business owner is super important. Um, Over the next couple minutes, I'd like to offer up for any of the people who are on to go ahead, if you have questions for the panelists, to go ahead and put it into the chat. And I'm going to kick off with one that came through, and this is a great one, which is what are some of the challenges in scaling local area marketing? And what do you guys suggest to do to address this?
I can go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think we've mentioned lots of challenges today. What I would say is, and it's been mentioned a couple of times, is in order to scale successful local area marketing, you need to ensure that you've got a feedback loop. Um, in that you need to know what's working and what's not working and why. And so whatever you are doing locally, you need to be able to use either your internal financial commercial data or the data associated with some of your demand signals through, your Google business profile, or, for whatever those signals are to your business, but you need a feedback loop. And then what that enables you to do is to overlay a return on investment, not in the financial sense, but you can kind of go, that delivered 3 times more than this. We should roll that out, and then ensure that as you're rolling it out, you're doing some testing. So you're doing some A/B testing. And then you're constantly flexing and perfecting and learning, so it's a continuous loop. I see that a lot when I go into clients. They do all of this amazing stuff, but actually nobody reviews it because everybody's on a hamster wheel, right? And we're all very busy and we keep going and we keep moving forward. Actually, nobody looks back and kind of goes, that's a really good idea. We should pick that up and put it into other places. And so that's kind of the biggest thing that I guide my clients on, which is, where's your feedback loop?
Yep.
What does that look like? Okay, how often are you looking at it? And then and then what's your process to scale it, to push it further? So to Andrew's point, something's happening really well over here. How do we take that idea and push it?
Yep.
You've got to have the mechanism to be able to do that.
Yep.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's really interesting. I was fortunate enough to attend the Franchise Growth and Marketing Conference in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and one of the conference workshops was actually on, are you utilizing your data? And I think, Kirsty, that's a great example of, we all have a wealth of data available, but how do you take that data and turn it into a story that you can then, if you're a franchisor, take it to your franchisees to encourage them and show them that this method or this strategy works at a local point, or take it and help shift your strategy to become a better ROI regarding on whatever return you're looking for.
Yeah.
Any other feedback there from you guys?
Other than completely agreeing with Kirsty, it's just echoing that, the ultimately when we think about what the challenges would be in anything that we scale, and especially in lamb, it becomes about where do we focus. And that's the importance of, really just understanding what each local activity actually teaches us about the customer, the catchment, the operator, or what else might be required to change any sort of behavior or activity in the market. So it comes back to this concept of learning. What do we learn each time? Because that's our opportunity. Where we just let something go and it just continues to operate into the ether, that's when things become clear as mud, and we
Yeah.
don't have any understanding about what to do with the information.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great question came through from Harry. What are some local area marketing strategies outside of social media? So we've talked a lot about kind of the review side of things, and we've talked a lot about, doing user-generated content or more localized social content. Do you guys have any kind of suggestions or ideas for local marketing outside of those kind of more digital?
We work with a lot of service businesses that do like landscaping, painting, roofing, those kind of things. And I think since the AI revolution here has started, and Andrew loves some of your input on AI, and I'm one of those people that is scared to death of what's going to happen here. And listening to you, it's like, okay, it gives me a little bit of comfort. Someone knows how to manage this. I've actually found that a lot of the traditional inbound lead generation that we used to use, Google pay-per-click, Meta pay-per-click, things that had been working like clockwork forever, fell off a cliff. We saw an absolute meteoric decline. And what has actually ended up working now in a lot of these businesses is stuff that we were doing 100 years ago. Knocking on doors, yard signs, looking up phone numbers and calling people or sending direct mail. I'm seeing a big, and maybe this is short-lived, maybe it's what the new norm is now, but more of that direct outreach. And some of the things that I'm seeing that are maybe different than what you think of when you send out like a direct mail, it has to be customized, it has to be tailored. And that's where I've seen AI make a big difference. You can customize something that would have taken you millions of man hours to do it. And now you can custom tailor a message to a potential client, and you get an engagement because it means something, and it's speaking to them. But I'm definitely seeing a little bit more of that grassroots return. Budgets were completely out of whack. The cost per lead, the cost per conversion, all those things were falling off. And a lot of these businesses were forced into doing this again. And no one likes to knock on doors or pick up the phone and cold call. But that's definitely a little bit more where we're seeing some of these things transition to, particularly in services. But that's one of the big local area things I've seen shift.
I mean, similar in Australia, in that, what was working in that kind of performance marketing space is not driving the same kind of returns as previously. I've had groups of franchisees band together to buy radio campaigns in their state. I've had groups of franchisees band together to do an outdoor campaign. I think with the advent of digital, you can do lots of kind of outdoor and video on demand, so that it's kind of, you are presenting it to them when they are open to receiving it. So, when I'm trying to get my kids to school and somebody is interrupting me as I'm trying to get out of the supermarket because I've forgotten to go to the supermarket to get their lunch and blah 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 blah, I'm not open to receiving that communication. But when I've dropped them off and I'm popping up and I'm coming back and picking up my coffee, I'm probably more open, right? And so it's kind of thinking through when I would be open and then using the digital capability to serve at the right time. And that you can do that through radio, you can do that through all the traditional mediums, and actually at a sliver of the original cost. So, traditional media, because of technology, has enabled lots of brands to lean into mediums that they would never have been able to do previously, right?
Yeah.
And then I think I'm currently in the not-for-profit space, and it will be the same anywhere in the world. Lots of media providers, as part of their offer free advertising. So the dollar that you spend, actually what you get is $5-6 back, because it's part of their corporate DNA. And so it's worth asking the questions, is there an opportunity? Is there a sponsorship that I can take? Is there do you offer free media for not-for-profits? If I band with a number of other people, do I get economies of scale? It's that kind of thing. It's, it's becoming far more affordable again.
Yeah.
Journey, what I was going to say to Harry would be
Yeah.
my strategy is I don't know what business Harry's in, but I'm constantly in meetings where I don't understand the business that they are operating in. So my job is context switching a lot. I could be with a bank and then with a aged care provider tomorrow and a high-end medical chain the next day. I would say build a skill that first understands your brand and what you do. And then I would suggest build another skill to actually create your LAMP strategies. So there's a majority of the platforms now have the ability to write scheduled tasks. So I would write a scheduled task that says, give me 5 new LAMP strategies every day that I can just come up with, and make like 4 pretty normal and make 1 ridiculously wild, right? And I love the wild one. Like I look forward every day to the wild. I've got a lot of wild card suggestions that come into me on my suggestions every day. And those wild card ones will be the ones that like no one's thinking about. So just create that skill, prompt it, set it to recur weekly, daily, whatever your consumption is, and make sure it's grounded in the context of your business. So start with the context of your business first, so that it's really relevant to you. Chris's examples with the HVAC guys and stuff like that, it's going to make sure it's going to be right. So and I think that will give you some really great strategies. We're in a land now where there's like 400,000 thought leadership pieces around the best LAMP strategies that are out there from 2026, and everyone's producing that content. I think create that into a skill that's unique to you and have it set up on a recurrence will just give you some gold day in, day out, every day. So yeah, that'll be my suggestion around that.
Yeah, I do want to be mindful of time. We are over a couple of minutes. So, if anybody has any additional questions, we can stick on for a few more minutes. But if you do have questions and you need a hop, I put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out, send me your question. And then if you have a specific panelist who it's for, I can get that passed on to them. Um, I appreciate all of the panelists. I just kind of to wrap up on my end, I think that, you know, a great thing that kind of came out of this, or the summary of what I've learned, or what kind of comes out, is that, local area marketing is still very much about the community and has a human element. And even with technology, we need to not forget about that human element. And then B, scaling is difficult, and it's something that unfortunately there isn't a one size fits for. I think everyone on this panelist can agree that, to actively and successfully do local area marketing for your business, you really need to look at what your current strategy is and what does that look like at scale from a personal business standpoint. And, at Points for Purpose, that's something that we strive to do, is kind of help out there. And everyone on this call, whether it's Kirsty, Chris, Josh, or Andrew, that's something that they also work very closely with on a regular basis, which is how do we help businesses scale their local area marketing and make sure that what they are doing is resonating with their communities and with their shoppers. Um, Panelists, anything else that you would like to wrap up before we close up for the session?
I was just going to say, like my whole thing around this purpose is make sure that agents can read what your purpose mission is and what you're participating in. Because now it's, before we get to the actual person visiting you, there's a lot of consideration that happens. And some of that consideration is just happening by, agents actually analyzing content on your website and stuff like that. So my suggestion would be, if you do participate in this, make sure it's really public, make sure it's machine readable so that it can be done, because I do see a time where agents will actually be querying and saying, I want to deal with a brand, but I want to know that they align with my own personal opinions around my own strategies around purpose. So I think
Yeah.
publishing it, making sure it's visible. I know that we do that. All the charities we support, we publish it so that everyone's aware that, hey, we're not just this corporate
Yeah.
greedy company where we're actually got some great purpose behind it. So I think, this idea of is really exciting. And thanks for having me on the panel today, Jenny. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Joni. I learned a ton just from Josh, Kirsty, Andrew. Is great. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And